All right, welcome back. Hopefully you guys took the time to do problems 6 and 7. Think about how you would treat that remainder and are now going to be able to check your work versus what I have put here on the beginning of this video. We will go through some more examples beyond this as well, but I just want to give you a couple of times to think about this. Now here's the first problem. At the Cactus Flower Cafe, all tips are divided equally. Okay, a couple of hints in that. So we're dealing with money, and it needs to be divided equally. Last night, the 16 waiters took in $1,108 in tips. How much did each waiter get? So again, at this point, we should be thinking about either turning this remainder into a fraction or a decimal because it needs to be divided equally. It's not how much is left over. We're not going to round up. We're not going to give one waitress more than another or waiter more than another. Okay, so we need to figure out. Now, we're dealing with money. So again, money most likely is going to be a decimal number. That's more often than not how we relate those situations. So here is the problem. I'm going to walk you through this one now so we can get to the answer. We can, again, kind of refresh and review our long division process. So as I do this, I'm looking at it and saying, okay, 16 doesn't go into 1. 16 doesn't go into 11, so I've got to go 16 all the way into 110. And if that's the case, I'm thinking about 16 probably in terms of about a 20. If I skip count by 20s, that's going to get me to about a 5. But I did round up quite a bit to get to 20. So again, this is just kind of talking my way through this process right now, guys. I'm going to start with the number 6 just to see if it works. Okay, that's how I would deduce where I'm going to start. A lot of this is guess and check, but I'm using mental math to try to figure these things out. So by rounding 16 to 20, I can easily skip count by 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. 120 is a little bit too big, but I did round up quite a bit. So I'm going to stay with 6. As I go through this process, 6 times 16 gets me to 36. Put a 3 up there. 6 times 1 is 3. So 96 is the number. So that one looks like it might work. So let me do some subtraction here. I can't take 6 away from 0, so I've got to ungroup. This becomes a 0. This becomes a 10. So there's a 4. Now I have to ungroup again. This becomes a 10. So I have a remainder of 14. Check my answer. Remember, divide, multiply, subtract. I check it, make sure it's good. 16 is bigger than 14, so I'm in good shape. Bring down the next number. All right, so now I got to figure out how many times does 16 go into 148. So if I use that 20 benchmark again, I start looking at it and saying, well, 110, I was able to get 6 of them out of there, so it's going to be a bigger number. So if I skip counting by 20s again, 7 would get me to 140. I can definitely go more than that. So how about 8? I'm thinking 8 might be the number that I want to use, so I'll try it. Okay, but before I put the 8 up here, I sometimes like to do it over on the side just so I've got this process here. 128. That looks like it's going to be actually a little bit small because if I subtract 148 and 128, that gets me to 20 left over. So that means I got to go back up and probably change this 8 to a 9. So now I change this math to 16 times 9, and if that's the case, I end up with 54. 9 times 1, so 14, 144. Now I know that's going to work. That's as close as I can get without going over. All right, subtract. I've got a 4. Now, I can look at this. I've got 69, remainder 4, but I cannot give remainder 4 to the waitresses. I can't do that. Okay, there's no way to break that up. Now I can look at it 2 ways. I can say this is 4/16 and turn it into a fraction and then convert that to a decimal, or I can simply do like I mentioned earlier where I put a decimal behind our number, put a decimal behind my full answer, and add zeros, which does not change my number. It doesn't change my answer. Okay, so I start looking at this. How many times does 16 go into 40? And as I think about that, I'm thinking about 2 because 16 times 2 is 32. Now I'm left with an 8. Okay, add another 0, still have a remainder. How many times does 16 go into 80? And if I do the math, it goes in evenly 5 times. I'm done with my remainder. Here is my decimal answer, $69.25. So again, I could put it as a fraction and say 4/16, which would simplify down to 1/4. A quarter of a dollar is 25 cents. That's definitely how I can look at that. Or I can add the zeros, convert it through the decimal process, continue to add zeros till I run out of a remainder. Okay? But I have to turn that into either a decimal or a fraction to get that answer. I cannot forget it. I can't round up. I can't give these people an uneven amount of money. All right. So that's the first one. Second one. Again, I know these are longer questions, guys. I wish there was a way I could tell you how to do this a little quicker, but it is what it is. So now let's look at problem number 2, or problem number 7, I guess, on the board here. It says a gardener needs to move 2,150 pounds of dirt. He can carry 98 pounds in his wheelbarrow. How many trips will he need to make with the wheelbarrow? Okay, so again, we know it's a division problem. We know it's going to be 2,150 divided by 98, and we know there's going to be a remainder. Why would they ask us to interpret remainders if we didn't have a remainder? Okay, but in this instance, what am I going to do with that remainder? Can he break up that load? Can he leave some dirt behind? Does he need to make an extra trip? Can he bring a partial trip over or break the trips up a little more equally by turning it into a fraction or decimal? No, in this case, this is like that bus ride. This is like having that table. I'm not going to leave the extra dirt behind. I need to make an extra trip. So in this case, I'm going to round up. So as I go through my long division process here of 2,150 divided by 98, okay, I'm going to go into this assuming that whatever my answer is with the remainder, I'm going to round up to one more whole number. So 98 doesn't go into 2, 98 can't go into 21, so I'm going 98 into 215. Again, if I use my mental math, 98 is really close to 100. 100 goes into 215 2 times. So 2 times 98 gets me to 100, 16, 18, so 196. All right, now I go through the subtraction process. This gets me to a 9. I now have to borrow again. This gets me to a 19. 19 is less than 98, so I'm in good shape. Bring down the next 0. How many times does 98 go into 190? It goes in 1 time. You'd think 2, it's very close to 2, but it does not. So 98, subtract. Now I don't really even need to find the answer to this, but that's fine. I have no problem doing it. Finishing off, I've got 92 as a remainder. But like I said, I can't leave that 92 pounds of dirt or whatever that is that's still left there. I can't just leave 92 pounds of dirt. I haven't finished the job. Okay? So I would need to take another trip. I'm making 21, but I'm still got 92 pounds left to move. That means that 21 needs to go up to 22 trips. I need to make the extra trip. I'm rounding up the whole number because of my remainder to make an extra trip. Okay? So this is why remainder interpretation matters. Okay? Now on these ones, again, I'm not going to spend as much time just because, again, I don't want to make another video and I don't want to drag this out. I know these are longer processes, but our learning target for today is simply what do we do with these remainders? Okay, so problem number 8 says Maya must work 133 hours during the month of May. There are 21 working days in May this year. How many hours per day, and again, that kind of means each day equally, will Maya work if she works the same exact number of hours each day? Keys here, equal, exact. We can't round, we can't shift numbers around and work some more someday and some more another day. Okay, so it's got to be exact. So this would be a situation where either a fraction or a decimal would work out. Okay, and if I go through the process, it turns out that she's going to work 6 full hours, and there's going to be a remainder of an extra hour in there. So each day she's going to work 6 1/3. We've turned that remainder into a fraction in this case, and it ends up being a remainder of a fraction at the end. Hours per day. Oops. All right. Next one, colored markers cost 78 cents each. Pablo has $21.63 in his pocket. How many markers? Now I know we see money, and so automatically our mind is going to jump, well, we got to turn it into a decimal. But the question isn't asking how much did each marker cost. It's not saying how much will that be in money terms. It's how many markers can he buy. So in this case, if I walk into a store with a certain amount of money in my pocket, okay, I can buy the markers I can buy, but if I don't have enough to buy the next round of markers, I got to put them back. I got to leave those alone. So the rest of the money is just going to stay in my pocket. So this is one in which we would ignore the remainder because I can't make that smaller amount of money pay for an extra set of markers. Okay? So in this case, if I were to go through the long division process, $21.63 divided by 78 cents, I'm going to end up with 28 or 27 remainder something, but that remainder something in this case just gets ignored so that I can buy 27 markers and then have a little bit of change left in my pocket. All right? Question 10. A meat packer has 180 kilograms of ground meat. He will divide it, again, key here, equally into 50 packages. How much will each package weigh? So again, key term in this question is equally. I need to do something with the remainder. I can't leave it as this is left over. It's just going to stay there. I can't round up because it needs to stay exact and equal. So in this situation again, now this is a little easier one. I will actually walk you through the process again. I'm either going to turn this answer into a fraction or a decimal. So 180 divided by 50, okay? Can't go directly into it, so what I'm going to end up with here is 50 goes into 183 times to get me to 150. 30 is my remainder. I just said equally, so that means I can either turn it into a decimal or I can turn it into a fraction. Either one works. One possible answer would be 30 or 50th, so 3 and 30/50ths, or if I turn this into a decimal, I would put this up here, add a 0. 50 goes into 300.6 times. So these are my two possible answers. Either 30, well, simplest form, and 3/5, or 3.6 kilograms. Okay? Whenever it says equally or exact, we need to get to fractions or decimals. And again, either answer is acceptable in that scenario. Whatever's easiest for you, I would say, is the best answer you can have. All right? So, I'm kind of wrapping up this video here, guys. I would highly suggest trying to solve questions 11, 12, and 13 on your own. Practice that skill. Maybe ask your parents. Contact your teacher if you're not sure if you did them right. Those kinds of things. We're not as concerned about what the answer is that you knew what to do with the remainder. So I'm going to have you pause the video here, think about those three things, and then I'm going to respond back to you in a little bit. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds here, and it's going to be dead air. It's going to sound like the video's done, but I want you to try to think, what would I do with the remainders in these last 3 questions? All right, that's close to 30 seconds. How many of you said, for number 11, that the remainder is the answer? And here's the key. How many of them must sit out? So we know how many people are on the court per game and all these kinds of things. We are looking for how many must sit out. That's the leftover people. They have to sit out. In that case, it should be an answer if 3 people are sitting out. Question 12, we again are looking for a question says, at the 4th of July celebration, 1,408 ounces of lemonade will be shared equally by 88 people. How many ounces of lemonade will each person get? Again, the key is equally. That means we need to either turn it into a fraction or a decimal. And then the last one here, just really quickly, says Armando needs quarters to ride the bus each day. He took $14.87 to the bank and asked to have it changed into quarters. How many quarters did he get? Well, he's going to have a leftover amount, but we need to forget the remainder in that scenario because you can't turn 13 cents into a quarter. So you're going to ignore the remainder. You're going to forget the remainder. Good luck, and remember to ask your questions of your teachers if you have them.